scheduled, and I was like, okay.
All right, there we go. All right, everybody. Moiz and I are already having some fun behind, but now we're live. For everybody on the podcast, thank you for joining another episode of Coffee and Commerce. This little sub-series that I've created on the podcast to really just bring some awareness and some joy and happiness to the great announcement of Vayner Commerce, a company that obviously I've wanted to build for a long, long time, given my background, and a great new addition to the VaynerX world. Big shout out to everybody who is in the live stream: Jeff Hickman, Ray Martinez, Sean Thomas, Jessica H, Emma Giles. Thank you guys for joining us. But most of all, thank you, Moiz, for joining us. Let's just get right into this podcast. Why don't you tell the Vayner Nation, all the people watching, who you are and what your relationship with e-commerce is. Let's just get right into the comic book, episode 1 kind of origin story. And thank you so much for taking the time during this tough time. I hope you and your family are well.
We're doing well. Thanks for having me.
Of course.
I was a lawyer in New York City for about 2.5 years. Left being a lawyer to start an e-commerce business back in 2012. We were actually in the alcohol space.
Oh, really?
Sold that business. Yeah, we were big admirers of Wine Library. We started a business called Caskers, which sold hard liquor online.
Yeah,
it still does.
Lost.
Yeah,
tough, right?
really tough.
Actually, since we got a little time, let's take it way back. Where did you grow up? Like, what kind of kid were you?
Sure. Grew up in Florida in a family full of a bunch of entrepreneurs. Like, my dad has never gotten a paycheck in his entire life, and wants it to be that way. Went to law school, and my brother was working at Microsoft. He quit to start a business. And when I became a lawyer, my dad and my brother would call me up and they're like, "What are you doing working for the man? You got to do."
They would just razz on
you. And I was like, my entire life I've wanted to be a lawyer, and I just graduated law school. I've got a bunch of student debt. What are you talking about? How could I possibly quit? Like, that's so much risk. And they're like, "You're an idiot. You got to leave right away." And so after a couple of years, I sort of mustered up the courage to actually do that. Started Caskers with a law school classmate of mine. We exited the business in 2013, and it was really my first taste in e-commerce. And, in 2012, I feel like being in e-commerce for 8 years makes me a dinosaur in this industry. In 2012, e-commerce was so different than it is in 2015 or 2020.
Bro, I launched Wine Library in 1996.
How did you do that?
It's so funny. I was so undereducated. Like, I wasn't a good student. I was a true entrepreneur. I was in a family business. It was literally this basic. It was, well, the internet's here now and it's going to be humongous. Like, it was just a very binary bet that most people didn't understand. I was like, everybody's going to buy stuff on the internet. And wine was challenging. It was a really gray space with like laws, like a lot of places you couldn't ship to, then you could, then a day later you couldn't. But I did have the foundation of building it on top of my dad's liquor store. And so, it just kind of worked right away, because even by then I'd already been in the business for like 7 years. Like, it's scary to think how much I knew about wine at 20, and 21. It was my whole life. Like, I don't even know how to say it. Like, it was all I knew and cared about. I wanted to be the greatest wine retailer of all time. There was just I was fucking obsessed. That's how.
But like today, you're like, okay, I got to start a website, and then I got to drive traffic to that website. How do you start a website in 1996? You have to hire your own developer?
Oh, you're going to love this. You get ripped off by a Russian guy named Alex, who owns a company in Livingston, New Jersey called Spacegate, and he pays you you pay him $25,000 for something that he probably built in 2 hours on Dreamweaver.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, just didn't know, you just didn't know. Like, it was like stagnant. I had to pick like 100 items in the store. It wasn't dynamic. There was no inventory, no API. To your point, but it was email, by the way, to answer your question.
That's how you drove traffic.
I knew it was email. I figured out email so early. And then because I had the benefit of having a store and it wasn't a pure play e-commerce site, I basically relentlessly didn't allow anybody to come into our store and not leave with their email. And in the beginning, Moiz, you'll love this. In the beginning, it was like, "Hey, what's your email?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, I have one of those now. It's AOL@yahoo.com." Like, people were just super confused, even the Wall Street crew. And then you just built from there. But back to you. So you were like a good student. Like, is your dad first generation or second generation? Like, how does the family tree go?
I was born in Pakistan. My dad was born in India. So I guess I'm first generation.
Yeah, you're like me.
I was 3. Came here when I was really young.
Yeah, I came when I was 3.
And so I don't know what I think that makes me first generation, but like hard to understand.
But you were told that school was like it's the way out, or even with entrepreneur parent.
even with entrepreneur parents, they're like, education is a silver bullet. We're working these jobs that aren't generating a ton of income for us. You're going to be able to generate a ton of income. We're working our asses off so that you can live a better life and you don't have to do this. And super grateful for that type. Like, when you're 8 years old, you don't understand the type of sacrifices that your parents are making, even if they're coming home at like 9
That's
or 10
right.
p.m.
That's right.
When you're in your 20s and your 30s.
Yeah,
That's
normal.
right. It seems normal.
Like that when hard work, I think, is a learned behavior. And so to me, it was just like I didn't know any different. Like my mom raised 3 kids with zero help. I never saw a housekeeper or somebody come over and help in my life. And she did everything for the kids and like worked her face off. And my dad, I didn't even see him until I was 14. So I can totally relate. So you go to law school, you do the Taskers thing. What happens next? Did you guys sell that as like a break even? Did you make a few cents? Did you was it like
we made a few $1 million each? Like it was a good
so it was
outcome.
a huge win.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, for 18 months of work and not understanding what the hell we were doing, it was a great outcome for us.
Moiz, let's not like be humble here or tone deaf. Like that's a massive fucking win. The amount of humans that have you're playing in rarefied air, especially after your next success that you'll tell everybody about. But like in real talk, the amount of people that build a business that does $1 million or they make $1 million is like nobody. People don't talk
You're
about
absolutely
that.
Right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. There was a great tweet I saw a long time ago that said, raise $10 million and you were invited to every awesome party. Sell your business and make $10 million and it's crickets. No one cares. And that's absolutely true and terrible.
There's a really, really, really interesting, like my favorite clip of me on the internet. I was on Bloomberg TV doing a Techstars roundup show, kind of like the Real World or like the Housewives, like the roundup show, because they did a show on Techstars. And it was like the last episode. I was there with Fred Wilson and like, it was like a thing. And like they went to the 8 companies. It's literally out of like the Real World and Housewives. It's the wrap-up show. And everyone's like, and at the end of the season, we raised $2 million. And the crowd's going nuts. And one company goes, yeah, so we decided not to raise any capital, but like, we made like 400,000 in profit in the last year. And we're like really getting to crickets.
Yeah,
I grab the mic and lose my shit. Like completely improv on TV, live. And I'm like, this is why everything's broken. These two I admire. You are celebrating giving up a piece of your company.
Sure.
And going to be forced to doing dumb shit forever because the VC is always going to push you in the wrong place. These people are building a real business and there's crickets. I appreciate you saying that tweet. That makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, it's nuts. It happens all the time. And especially like, we were based in San Francisco, my next business, and that's all it is over here. You want that TechCrunch article, you want the, you want that publicity around raising a fundraising round. And so in 2015, I launched a deodorant business called Native, which was like a direct to consumer personal care company. Nobody ever heard about us until we sold the business. We raised a small amount of money. We raised about $500,000 over the life of the business. Yeah, wow. First 300K came in like the first year. The next 200K came like, with between year 1 and 2.
Were you in a payout schedule on the liquor brand? So you didn't put your own liquid in, or you put a little bit of your own liquid in, or how'd you play it? It's good learning for people.
From the liquor brand probably cost us like $1,000 to start. Native probably
I apologize.
$2,000.
When you started Native, when you raised capital, was that strategic? You obviously had that big exit. Were you waiting for that money to waterfall? Like that was an earnout, or
no,
you decided it was just strategic? Got it. So you were deciding.
I guess like what I was looking for was, well, one, I was in San Francisco and I was like, I guess this is what people do. They go out and raise money, and that's a sign of success.
Stay there with that. You just helped a lot of kids, not even kids, 50-year-olds. You had the money, but you gave up a piece of your, and like, by the way, let's educate people. You gave up a piece of that business. We're about to get to the punchline for those that don't know. That business had a very successful exit. You made a lot of money for somebody else that could have been yours if you used your own liquid, but the world was like, oh, you raised money.
Sure. Certainly fell into that trap of being like, you need to go raise money in order to make this business successful. You need that type of outside validation. This was despite the fact that we were like profitable since day one. I was just like, I don't know what, I think this is what we're supposed to be doing. I'm in San Francisco and all of these people at these parties are talking about raising money. I guess that's what I should be doing. We were like slow about it, raised $50,000 probably in the first 3 months, raised another 250 within 1 year. That was about 6% dilution to the business. So we were raising at a $5 million cap, raised $300,000 at that valuation. And then after that, we lifted our valuation significantly, and like, there wasn't meaningful dilution after that. But yeah, for the first year, we raised money because we're like, okay, this is what we're supposed to be doing. In those investors' defense, they were like fantastic people to have around the table. They were really kind.
Yeah.
They picked up the phone when I called them. It was great.
To your point, you could get there's so many different investor relationships. You could have an investor who puts in 5 million of the 6 million and is just passive money. And you could have somebody in that same round put in 120,000 and they're the one that made the intro to Walmart or Amazon or gave you the insight on a TikTok ad spend that changed the business.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more with that. And for me, I was a solo founder. And so getting that money or getting other people around the table really made it much easier, made it easier for me to have conversations with other adults about the business. I was like, I didn't really have anybody to share the ups and downs of the business with that also had a financial interest. And so that was great.
Did you find solace in that with your dad, brother, or fellow entrepreneurs? Were you able to find that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly with my brother, he was out here running a mobile gaming company that raised $40 million from Andreessen Horowitz. He was certainly like the guy that I talked to every day about the business, but at the same time, he was running his own business. And so it's hard to necessarily go down in the details with him, at least some of the times. And then I also started this e-commerce brunch in San Francisco where a bunch of us would get together once a month and talk about our business. And our business, we saw businesses go from $0 to $200 million in revenue, over the course of the 2 years of that brunch. It was really fantastic. Cool. It was great to have that sort of network.
Who was there? Just to give some nice shout outs to friends.
This guy named Eric from Nectar Mattresses, Matt from Vinebox, Hank from Japan Crate. We ended up inviting a few investors as well. So Sunny from Signia, Nargia from Mavron. It was really great. And it's a rotating crew as well. And so, you'd sometimes people would show up and sometimes people wouldn't. And so you're constantly learning new things.
I love that.
Ton of fun.
So keep going.
Ton of fun, grew native, it was super profitable. We were growing like cats and dogs. We started the business in 2015, November 2017, we're doing tens of millions of dollars in revenue a year.
What was working? Facebook ads?
Facebook ads were working, but in reality, we were at the right product at the right time.
Press?
Press was working, but so was repeat purchase rate. We really worked on creating a much better deodorant than when we launched. And
let's I apologize for interrupting this because what I'm really hoping with the launch of VaynerCommerce is that this is a signal to the marketplace. I'm trying to use my awareness and my platform and this business's platform to really help people become more 360 with their thinking, because as everybody became so one-dimensional on CAC and LTV. There was no sustainable e-commerce. And because I've been doing that for almost 25 years now, I really understand it. And that's what, by the way, one of the biggest reasons I didn't invest during this period with a lot of those companies was of course I knew there'd be some that would get through, bought by bigger companies. Of course I knew there'd be 2 or 3 generational entrepreneurs who went on to build evergreen businesses like Amazon and Facebook and things of that nature. But so many people were so one-dimensional of I understand Facebook ads and I'm going to build the next peanut butter and the next Coca-Cola and the next coffee. And it was just not going to happen. What you just said matters so much. There's so many tactics in packaging, in remarketing, in customer service, but nothing beats a great fucking product. And I think from outside, we've never gotten a jam. I can tell you as a user, by the way.
Fantastic. Awesome.
You have a great fucking product.
Thank you. Really appreciate that. We worked really hard on it. When we launched the business, we had a 20% repeat purchase rate and 3.7 star reviews. And so we spent the first year of the business just working on product. And I couldn't agree more with you. People think that it could be, that it's 90% marketing. In reality, marketing is important, but the marketing is only going to get you so far.
Marketing exposes the truth. I'm living it right now. I had a really fun, my dad and I were on vacation in Italy this summer and he looked at me. He literally looked at me and says, I don't share this off. And he's like, hey, so you help all these other fucking people. You're not going to help out dad. And what the truth is, and you're going to understand this better than anybody. The reality is we had this long period of time where I helped build his business. Then I kind of broke off. We both kind of needed it, right? He got to be the man again because I was the fucking man. My energy was only one direction.
Yeah.
It was great. And he loved those first 3 to 4 years when I wasn't there, but he didn't love, as the business started feeling me not being there.
Yeah, of course.
And I was kind of happy because we were in a great place in our personal relationship because we weren't 2 cooks in a kitchen, And so I was a little cautious. But anyway, back to the moral story. So we have this time, and I literally have been thinking about this idea, and so I executed it. I executed something recently called Wine Text. Do you drink wine?
Yeah, I drink wine.
Good. I really want you to sign up. It would mean a lot for me.
Great, I will.
It's called Wine Text. I just think you're gonna, knowing your background, I think you're gonna get an insight. It's called Wine Text. You sign up for it. It takes 2 minutes to sign up, and then you get a text a day. It's basically Groupon meets Wine Library, where it's a humongously discounted wine. Today was a $48 red blend for $19, right?
Gotcha.
And you just reply with a number, and that's how many bottles get shipped to you. And what's happening is we're doing it right now, and it's exploding. And I've done I do a million things, and it really reminded me why I knew Native was going to win the first time I saw it. Wine Text is just the right product. It's so frictionless. I've literally seen multiple people tweet that Wine Text makes Amazon feel cumbersome, and I was like, whoa, and so I couldn't agree with you more. Like, all that marketing does is exposes the truth.
Yeah.
I tell companies all that. We turned down a big deal the other day, and the founder is blown away and is like now is super intrigued by me because we walked, and I said, your product is awful. Like, we're gonna all I'm gonna do is speed up you going out of business.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's great.
That's what great marketing does. It speeds up the truth.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be honest, like, when we launched our business, we barely spent any marketing dollars because we were like, we think this product needs to get better before we can create a home run, before we have a home run exit. And so, like, we launched in July of 2015. By by May 2016, we were at about $100,000 a month in revenue. So not nothing, but not huge.
No,
but then we launched a new product. We launched a new formula in May of 2016, at the end of May 2016, because we're like, okay, we think we've finally figured this out. Instantly, by the end of May, we saw reviews go up to north of 4.5 stars. We saw repeat purchase rates start going up from 25% to 50%. And we knew we were onto something big. And so June was $250,000. By November of 2016, we were at $1 million a month. So it took us 7 months to realize, hey, we've got the product that we wanted, and to start putting marketing dollars to work to 10x the business. Because we realized we had the right product and we were in the right industry at the right time.
Pour the lighter fluid once it's proven not to be the oxygen that sustains it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Repeat purchase. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, I apologize. I'm trying to think about how to bring value to everybody who's listening. What are some of the trends? There's so many aspiring entrepreneurs or people looking at the space. Also, this, a lot of these brands are about to go out of business during this period because they're not going to get the fundraising to keep them alive. So I think there'll be some opportunistic entrepreneurs that will look to pick up brands. Like, what should people be thinking about from e-com? Like, what's your state of the union from your great perspective?
Yeah, I think there's been a real reckoning in e-commerce in the last 4 months. And part of it is due to, general economic malaise and COVID. Part of it is, some VC-backed businesses are just not working. Outdoor Voices need to get recapitalized. Brandless getting shut down. Casper's IPO not going in the direction that people wanted. It ultimately fundraised more than it sold for. And then people realizing that, hey, we need a path to profitability as well. And I think WeWork really proved that. Obviously, it was in a different industry, but it made everyone realize, hey, you know what? You can't just constantly throw marketing dollars at a business and have losses for the next 10 years. You need a path to profitability. So I absolutely think you're right. There is a reckoning going on in e-commerce. There are distressed assets, in part because of COVID, in part because people realize that they can't easily get VC funding, and in part because people don't have a path to profitability. And so that perfect storm is really disrupting the direct-to-consumer industry.
And there's also a lot of brands that don't get the headlines of the ones that you just brought up, who are quietly and very successfully building nice 11, 6, 13,
Definitely.
$4, $9 million businesses that are profitable and have their economics straight.
Yeah, absolutely. And those owners are becoming incredibly wealthy. They'll do $10 million with 20% margins. These guys will be taking home $2 million a year. That's a fantastic outcome.
If you like it, it's insane.
Yeah, that is
don't forget $440,000. Yeah, $440,000 a year is the beginning of the 1% earners in our country.
Yeah.
You have that kind of take home, get out of town. Yeah. I mean, that's a dream.
Yeah. I really love that you're praising that.
Yeah.
I feel like nobody else praises that. It's great that you're praising that. The $10 million a year business with 10% or 20% margins is a fantastic business.
I'm also praising the $1 million a year revenue, honey business that's taking home 86,000,
sure,
but is smiling every day of their life.
Sure.
I'm thank you for saying that. And I'm trying to even take it, let's say, click down one more level with the way that Shopify, Instagram. I mean, there was a guy on my Tea with GaryVee yesterday who, did a TikTok that went viral and they sold $2,000 worth of their beauty product in a second.
Yeah.
Like, there's so much practicality around a $94,000 a year business. Like, who I think a lot about. You obviously run in those Silicon Valley circles. I run in my circles, but both of us, you in Florida, me in Jersey, we still come from, especially immigrants, family businesses, gas stations, liquor stores, right? To me, I just wish people realized, especially, I actually use lawyer a lot. I'm thinking about the $113,000 a year, executive right now who's in their 20s, or the $280,000 executive in their 53. And I'm like, man, if they knew that they could sell something that they love, like sports gear, honey, raspberry, wine, and make 80% of their earnings, or maybe 120% of their earnings, they'd be so happy.
Yeah, it's just, you have to, like, Steve Jobs has that great 2005 commencement speech at Stanford where he's like, you can't see the dots connecting themselves in the future. You have to, like, you can only see them in hindsight. Like, nobody understands how things are going to work. Like, you can't quit your job and be like, I know I'm going to be able to make 120% of my income within 2 years. You can only do that after you quit your job. And that's the big risk that people have to take.
But if people are willing to lean into humility and happiness, if you didn't need a BMW, if you didn't need to live in the apartment, forget about BMW. If you're living in a $4,000 a month apartment that you're paying for, can you go to a $2,800 one, which unlocks the $1,200 that allows you to take the risk? It's this combination of like relationship with humility that leads to happiness that I think a lot about.
Yeah, it's like lifestyle creep, right? All of a sudden you move, like, you're a lawyer and now you move into that $6,000 a month apartment
and now you're in trouble.
Yeah, exactly. Now you need a $250,000 income in order to maintain that lifestyle. And are you willing to give that up, especially when your friends are going to remain in that $6,000 a month apartment?
What was the biggest eye opener now looking backwards at Native that you did subconsciously or intuitively that was a monster foundational block that you're like, damn, that wasn't taught to me. I didn't read that. I didn't watch Steve Jobs talk. That was just some, DNA shit. And it didn't, I didn't even realize it, but wow, thank God I did that.
Yeah. My parents owned gas stations growing up, and I worked in them throughout middle school and high school. And, learning how to market products at a gas station really like translates and into learning how to market products with customers, even online, right? Like, you got to know
what was your hardest like move in the gas? Give me like a classic story.
In the gas station business, I mean, we'd like be like, okay, should we invest $1,000 or $1,200 into this like icy machine? And yeah, exactly. And when are we ever going to get that? Like, if we sell 4 of them a day, we're never going to get that money back. So how much do we have to sell a day? Do we have enough foot traffic for that? I mean, I was 12 years old or 15 years old when I was working there. I didn't understand any of those metrics, right? I was just like, okay, we have this $1,200 machine. We have to make it look really nice. You got to keep all this powder and mix in it. And what happens when no one buys it? At the end of the day, you got to throw out what's left over. And now all of a sudden you waste a bunch of money.
2 or 3 of them, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And so like, that's why everyone has diabetes.
I used to eat all the Slim Jims at my dad's liquor store counter. And he's like, oh, we're selling Slim Jims. I'm like, not really.
Yeah, exactly.
Really.
Yeah, that's right. And so, you got to worry about those types of things. And that type of like understanding those costs and that DNA and then translating that into building a much larger business online it's the same thing. It's just at a different scale. And like being frugal, we started our website on WordPress, on WooCommerce. We're doing north of $5 million a month on WooCommerce, like on a WordPress website that was absolutely free to build. The initial investment in the business was probably $1,800, like a very low investment.
You took pre-sales on the deodorant up front, or?
No, we had like just-in-time inventory. And so in reality, if you bought your deodorant today, which is a Tuesday, we probably made it Wednesday or Thursday and shipped it to you Friday. And that was a big failing of ours. We could it took us a long time. Monday and so on Tuesday.
It's not a failure. It's actually the best advice you gave here, because everybody thinks they need to raise $1 trillion. I would actually argue it's one of the best kernels you just gave in this entire podcast, because there's a lot of people that think if they're not in a position to raise $50,000 in capital, they can't start a business. Like I started a what was it, $3,000, $150,000 a year baseball card business on a fucking quarter. You can, you just gotta be patient. And I actually admire you so much for that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, look,
I think as long as you didn't make a promise up front to like same day shipping, as long as you didn't, you know what I mean?
Sure, sure. And like what we were really good at was also customer service. We're like, look, like I did the most customer service tickets between the time we started the business and when we sold the business. Like I was the number one customer service agent because in reality, like people talk about direct to consumer. The advantage you have over the Procter and Gamble's and Unilevers of the world is that you have a direct relationship with the consumer
100%.
in a way that P&G's and Unilevers never do. And if as a CEO you step back from that relationship, you've become P&G. You no
Moiz,
longer have that direct relationship.
I would write thank you notes into wine. I would take the order would come in.
Yeah.
I would process it because I took it from the website and had to ring it up on the computer. Like it was, it was fucking 19.
Sure.
I would then go on the floor, pull the bottles. I would then put in the styrofoam. I would then write a note. Moiz, thank you so much. Wine library is the future. Like keep drinking Pinot Noir. Like real shit, not just like thank you.
Yeah. Sure.
Pack it, tape it, drive it to mailbox, etc. And shit. Like people don't get it. They see the outcome. They see the outcome. They see the fucking outcome.
For me, I was also writing thank you notes. On the first day that Native started, we launched on Product Hunt, and I like tweeted out a photo of all these thank you notes from the Native Twitter account, and it looked like there were this many orders because there were this many sheets of paper. In reality, it was the first like 5 or 6 sheets of paper that were actually had thank you notes. Everything else was blank. And then, I would go home. I would work during the day answering customer service, doing marketing and operations. And then I would go home to actually, I lived with my brother at the time. I'd go home to his apartment and pack boxes while watching Netflix, Monday through Thursday of the week, basically. And then do Fridays on Saturday or Sunday. And, was doing from A to Z sort of by myself on my dining room table until we got to too many orders where I was like, okay, we need to get a third party in order to be able to pack these boxes.
Love. Were you in the mindset of in that such a practical startup scene that like, we'll do it this way because it might not work out and we may sell coffee or hats or something else?
Absolutely. I was like, look, nobody's going to buy deodorant online. People aren't going to buy $12 deodorant online. That's triple the price of the Old Spices and Degrees of the world. So let me see what happens in 2 months. I'll learn whatever I can. And then this business will probably not go anywhere and I'll have to fold it. I'll have to fold. And within 2 months, I was walking from my apartment to the local USPS facility, which was only 2 blocks away from my brother's apartment, with 2 big giant trash cans worth of product filled up. My shoulders were sore along the two block walk, and I'd walk into USPS and be like, "Here, I'm shipping all these things," and they're like, "What the hell are you doing here? This is like a local retail branch. You're waiting in line, and you've got 600 packages that you just brought with you." And that's the way you got to do it.
I literally did the same thing with Wine Library. Mailbox.
That's the way you.
I actually eventually got to a scale where I had to send one of my employees to just be there the whole time.
Yeah, that's right. That's great. Later on, a year later, when people were like, "Hey, Moiz, we're having these shipping problems or we're having these box problems," I was already an expert on it. I was like, I've weighed the deodorant, I've weighed the box, I've weighed the packaging material. I know when you got to get to USPS by in order to get your product shipped that day, in order to get the tracking label active that day. I went through all of that by myself. I've done ShipStation. I know how to use ShipStation because I was the person doing it by myself, myself. If you start hiring people to do that, that's crazy early on.
Yeah, especially because even if you could afford it,
sure.
If you can't be the judge of the execution within your own business, you are vulnerable.
Yes, absolutely. You have no idea what's going on if somebody's like, "Hey, this
you're
isn't
tricked
working."
all day.
Okay, I guess so.
People like Gary, I hired somebody to do my social media. I'm like, you're in trouble because I'm in social, and I can tell you right now, just like you with commerce, and I'm in commerce. Like a lot of it's bad.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you can get really tricked if you don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Yeah, I think the hard part is 2 years in when your business has grown and the complexity is shot up, up and to the right. It's really hard to live up to that complexity. By the time, Native is now a 9-figure-a-year business. We've got multiple contract manufacturers. We're shipping from multiple places. We're selling into Target, Walmart, CVS, Walgreens, and all these other retail stores. It's hard to live up to that level of complexity when you get there. It's a lot easier, in the early days when you're doing everything and you're like, I'm an expert in everything. My first 8 employees, I was like, I'm an expert in what you're doing because I did it myself for a year before I hired you.
100%. So how long did Native happen before you sold the company to Procter & Gamble?
About 26 months. We launched in July 2015. We launched, we sold in November 2017.
For some of the people that are going through potentially selling their companies, obviously right now it's an interesting time. So maybe it just stopped or maybe it'll come up after this. How hesitant were you to sell that early when you had something that good? It's Procter, it's one of the biggest companies in the world.
Sure.
Not to overshare because some of this is personal stuff, but were you completely fucking blown away when you saw the offer? Like, you know, like some of this stuff is public knowledge. Like,
yeah, sure.
So tell the story for everybody.
Yeah, we somebody came knocking on our door back in February 2017. So that 18 months into the business, you know, at first I was like, this isn't real. And then they made an offer where we had to sort of like wake up. And I was just like, look, by the time we sold the business, I owned 90% of the company. So I was still a majority shareholder. And I was like, look, I can't ignore all of these offers. Like, you know, in July 2015, 0% of my wealth is in native. By 2017, 99.99% of my wealth is in native. And I recognize that. And like, you know, nobody wants to have all their chips in one basket. And so, you know, this person came knocking. We hired an investment banker and sort of talked to the Unilevers, P&Gs, Colgate Palmolives, all the you know, strategic buyers, and a bunch of private equity firms as well. You know, doing the deal is absolutely nuts. Like P&G hadn't done a deal in 10 years. I remember we hired an investment banker and we're like, so what does P&G do? Like, how do they usually behave when they're doing M&A? And they're like, nobody has any idea because they haven't purchased anything in a decade. So like the people who are doing this are new people. Like nobody knows how they behave any longer. Well, with, you know, Unilever or another private equity company, they're buying companies every day or every quarter. And so you sort of know how they'll behave. You know, did the deal. P&G was fantastic. I think when you're selling the business, what you're really worried about is like deal certainty. Is this deal going to happen, or is somebody going to try and like pull the rug out under me at the last second? And you're willing to like make compromises for that. P&G, I never felt that way with P&G. Like before we did the deal, they're like, hey, look, this is what we're going to do after we close. You're going to run this business. We love this business. Your team is going to remain in San Francisco. You're going to remain in San Francisco. You're completely independent from us. And that was, you know, there was a lot of deal certainty going into that. But like, yeah, I mean, $100 million, was it a eye-opening number? Absolutely. Like, that's a crazy amount of money.
Who'd you call first when you thought it was becoming real?
My brother, definitely, because like he had been there. Like I was running the business out of his apartment. He had been there every step of the way. He was the person I went to when I was scared about the business, when I didn't think I knew what I was doing. And like, you know, he knew how to push me. Like when our product was really poor, or like not like, you know, getting 25% purchase rate. Yeah, he'd be like, Moiz, you need to make this product better. And I'm like, well, Unilever spends $1 billion a year on R&D. You want me to do better than that? Like I don't have $1 billion.
And he's like, yes.
And he's like, yeah, you can do it. And like, he knew to push me just enough for me to get upset and work really hard, but not enough for me to like sort of quit and be like, fuck this, I'm not doing this. Really nice. So him, and like, it was fantastic. And yeah, I mean, that acquisition was a massive outcome for us, but it was also a really great learning. Like, you know, I learned how to build a business from 0 to 9 figures, and that was crazy. And it turns out like, you know, everyone gets to do it in their own way. When we sold the business, we had 8 employees, and a bunch of them were in customer service. And like, you know, that's rare for a business that's doing tens of millions of dollars in revenue. But everyone gets to pave their own path. And when people come to me and they're like, "Hey, what worked for native? Was it Facebook? Was it Instagram? Was it Pinterest?" What worked for me is not what's going to work for you. What I did was specific to my industry and the time that I was doing and my skill. And you know, you might be a star for dancing with the stars. Don't use Facebook publicity. Don't use Facebook advertising.
Of course, and it changes, right? Like Facebook's changing every second. If you know, TikTok, and then it might be like somebody's going to build a huge e-commerce company because their shipping box, when you open it, smells like cinnamon cookies, and it becomes all the rave. And the Today Show covers it, and everybody covers it, and that's the spark. Dollar Shave Club was a singular creative video, no different than Just Do It or The Beef. They just nailed it so hard that it just changed their game from day one. They launched with a win. What an incredible hit. Sorry, everybody, I took out my earpiece. Is there an echo? Are we good now?
It's because you're a speaker. And the voice. Voice is talking.
We're wrapping up anyway. I'll try to. You know what? I'll put my things back on. They were about to die. Moiz, give us some wisdom on the way out.
Yeah, I think that like people should be entirely independent when they're starting these businesses. Don't follow other people's paths. Do what you're good at, and be consistent about that. You know, we had people telling us when we were growing the business, they're like, you need to launch another product before you sell the business. You can't just sell deodorant and sell this business for 100 million. You have to sell 5 other categories in order to prove that you're not a one-trick pony. That wasn't the case. We're like, I appreciate that advice. We're going to do what we think is right. People were like, have you tried influencer marketing? I was like, you think I haven't thought about influencer marketing? I'm trying to do tens of millions of dollars in revenue. It's 2017. I know what influencer marketing is, but I'm going to do what I think is right for the business. And I encourage people to do that. And maybe most of all, be frugal. You know, people walk, like when I walk into offices, I walk into like other startups' offices and I'm like, this is the most beautiful office I've ever seen. I'm going to come here every day and eat your free lunch. My company, which is profitable and doing 7 figures in EBITDA a month, cannot afford free lunches. Your company is losing money and can afford free lunches. I'm going to eat your free lunch. We never paid for office space until we sold the business. You know, I'd contact all these other companies that were doing worse than us and they'd be like, here, talk to my assistant. I'm like, you have an assistant? What are you doing? Like, your business is not profitable and there's no path to it and you're hiring all of these people. Be frugal. There's nothing shameful in being cheap.
Moiz, what you just said, and I bravo you, is actually build a business instead of what you and I have lived through the last decade, which is people have built financial arbitrage machines. They are not businesses. I've told a lot of my friends, you don't have a business. You have a financial arbitrage machine. You take capital. As soon as you take the capital, you deploy it like a rich kid. You then immediately go right back into getting that person or somebody else to deploy more capital into you. All you do is make decks and play in Excel sheets and CAC and LTV and manipulate numbers to have VC meetings. You don't know anything about your own fucking customer.
Yeah, it's nuts. Go build a real business, not a business made for the tech crunch in the world. And if you build 100%. A real business, you will get in tech crunch.
Yeah, I lived it. I built a liquor store that had a website and I was on Dignation and TechCrunch, you know, before I even knew what the fuck that meant, you know? And so,
I love that. That's great.
So what are you up to now? Like, are you running the business independent still? Like, I apologize for not knowing. Okay, tell me what's going on.
At the end of January. So I've been independent for, like, I haven't been doing anything for, like, you know, I've been running the business for the last couple of months. I'm now investing in a bunch of businesses. I'm an investor in a bunch of e-commerce businesses, from Manscaped to Pepper to, you know, Magic Spoon. Love investing and advising e-commerce businesses.
Do you think you'll get out of that? Like, do you think you'll get bored of it? Kind of like I did. It's almost like I'm looking at you. I'm like, wow, this is so my life. Like, I just literally immediately was like, I wonder when and if he gets bored of being that passive. And you
definitely.
Yeah.
Look, it's been 3 months and I want to start another business already.
Yeah.
COVID makes it so you can't travel and it's hard to like have meetings and it's hard to do things. But like, there's no way I'm an investor at heart. I'm an operator at heart.
Yeah.
And I
learned that too. Was there anything else that we haven't touched on, just as a parting shot?
Really appreciate the time and really appreciate you sort of praising businesses that are doing $1 million and taking home 80K, or doing 10 million and taking home 2 million. Nobody does that, and really appreciate a voice as loud as yours doing that. You're inspirational in that.
And any like hot take, you know, I love leaving like a last breadcrumb of like a singular tactic. You already put it down so properly. I admire so many things that came out of your mouth today. So thank you for being on. Everyone's got their own unique thing.
Yeah.
And anything emerging that's kind of got your attention, like, oh, that's clever, or I like that, or I bet you that could, it may work for 63% of this audience. Any people like a nice tactic from a leader like you.
Yeah, I'll tell you where we worked at Native. You know, we started asking customers to do a lot of video reviews at home because we're like, look, reviews can be faked, and no one, like, you know, people don't trust Yelp reviews like they used to.
No. And
people may not trust our reviews or even Amazon reviews. But if you have a mother, you know, with her child at home taking a video talking about Native with an iPhone in her bathroom, and you have hundreds of those, and they're all different homes and different bathrooms and different mothers, you can't fake those things. And so that was really critical for us.
I love that. And you know what's cool about that, in the way I think about production, you can take some of those assets, ask for the rights, and really make some really great hero and other creative with it.
Yeah, those became our ads. They became selling points on the website. They became conversion tactics. Like, they were instrumental in growing the business.
I appreciate that tidbit. I appreciate you. Keep going. Let me know if I can ever be a help to you.
Thanks so much, Gary. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for everybody listening. Thanks for everybody watching on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. I saw all your comments. I appreciate it. We'll talk soon. Everybody stay healthy. Take care.
See you, Gary.
Coffee and Commerce. We'll see you next time.